Employee Central Cross Topics, and Stephen will be taking us through this module.
Thanks, Phoebe. Good morning, everybody. So in Cross Topics, I'll be talking mainly about the integrations that exist between SuccessFactors and other systems, primarily other SAP systems. So you can go to the next slide, please. So a lot of customers are using what's called core hybrid integration for employee data. So you might typically say be performing most employee master data updates, capturing people's addresses, job info, what have you, on a SuccessFactors system, but doing core functions like payroll in a back-end SAP system. And so the two systems are integrated, with the SuccessFactors system being the master for employee data. Now, one limitation that we've had up to this point has been that any one SAP system can only be linked with one SuccessFactors system to synchronize the employee data. And now this can be a limitation if in a larger company you might have multiple SuccessFactors systems that are handling employees in different countries. It can also be a challenge if you're in the middle of a project implementation and you're doing a phased rollout. So you're doing part of your company at a time. And you might want to use separate SuccessFactors systems, one for test and one for production, but linked to the same system while you're doing a phased rollout. So that up till now, that's not been possible, but now with the if you have the correct SAP support packages, new functionality is available. The screenshot is there. It's a little bit small, I'm aware, but you can essentially create multiple EC instances, as they're called, on the SAP backend, and link to them. And if we can go to the next slide, there's some additional functionality here that helps as well. One issue that you've got with handling multiple SuccessFactors instances is that you cannot be sure that your employees will have a unique ID anymore. So, for example, you can imagine a SuccessFactors system in the UK with a particular employee has an ID 1234. There may well be another SuccessFactors system for the same company in a different territory where you have another employee with the same ID. So as a sort of prerequisite step for using this integration across multiple EC instances, you need to essentially add the EC instance ID to the mapping so that we can be sure that we know who we're talking about, which employee 1234 we're talking about. And so this program here, shown in the screenshot, enables you to do a pre-run before you switch on the multiple instances integration, and it adds the EC instance ID to the employee mapping, making sure that everything is unique. Okay, Phoebe, if you go to the next slide, please. Now, here we're talking about SAP master integration from a backend SAP system or from a linked SAP system to a SuccessFactors system. And there are actually a couple of completely new integrations introduced in this release. The first of them is for contingent workers. So on the backend SAP system, these people would be represented not as employees, but as external workforce. And you might have a scenario where you want to integrate that data into your SuccessFactors system. And so then you can manage your workforce, both of your own internal employees and your externals, really kind of as one. So this is a completely new integration. It picks up that external workforce from the SAP master data and pulls them across into SuccessFactors as contingent workers. Phoebe, next slide, please. Now, the other half of that integration process is also to pull through suppliers. So on a SAP system, these are represented as vendors, and this integration, which is new, will pull them across into the SuccessFactors system and create them as vendors there. Now, this is important if you want to manage work orders on SuccessFactors, because when you create a work order, you want to assign it to a supplier. And so the supplier is an essential master data object to have for that scenario to work. So overall, with these two integrations, you can imagine that you're processing work orders on SuccessFactors, and you can have that view of the total workforce available to you, both your internal staff and your external staff, with these new integrations. Phoebe, next slide, please. I hope we skipped over one there. Can you go back one? Yeah. So in the employee integration scenario, again, we now have a new tool which is called identify to exclude from processing. So what this is about is when you're integrating employees from SuccessFactors to a back-end SAP system, obviously it does a lot of error checking, and you can see in the error logs what happened. Now, most errors are fine in the sense that they show up in the log and you can see what happened, and the process carries on to the end anyway. But occasionally you get exceptional errors where the employee is trying to create the employee on the back end SAP system, and you might have some kind of inconsistency with the data which is not obvious, but it causes the creation of the employee to terminate on the SAP system. The problem that causes is that the whole run will then stop. So let's say that you're integrating employees every day between the two systems, maybe 200 employees in one run. If the 10th employee in the run has an exceptional error, that stops the process there, and so the other 190 don't get processed. So obviously this is not great for ongoing process to work. So what this tool does is identify proactively for you people who have employees that have experienced that kind of exceptional error, and allows you to isolate them, exclude them from the next run. That will allow all the other 200 in my example to continue, and then you can focus on fixing the error for that one employee without affecting everybody else. Okay, next slide please, Phoebe. So migrating employees with concurrent employment. So again, the focus here really is migrating data out of a SuccessFactors system into another system. So the baddie that's available there allows you to have now has a finer control over the sort of data which is shared across concurrent employment. So that's stuff like personal info and address info, and the contact info like email and phone. So previously with this API, with this type of integration, when you had an employee with a lot of concurrent employments, multiple employments, you got the full sort of set, or you got the employment, you got the personal data and the contact data based on the first employment, which isn't necessarily correct. So this new baddie allows you to filter and target the correct address and contact data for that employment. Okay. Next slide, please, Phoebe. This is the final slide, I think. So yeah, the compound employee API, which is the sort of workhorse API that a lot of employee integrations use. It's always getting new features. In this particular release, they've added some new filters, employment end date being one of them, and some attributes that relate to the manager. So with these new attributes, you can get more information about the manager. You can get the correct external IDs of the employee manager. It's very useful because normally you would have to then look them up again using another API call. Now you do it in one. And the employment end date filtering, the focus there is being able to remove or filter out employments which are terminated. So when you're retrieving employee data in an API scenario, it doesn't have to be for a SAP integration, it can be a custom integration. You quite often want to only focus on the active employments, not the terminated ones, because people can have quite a lot of employment history, multiple employments, and some of them terminated. So these filters allow you to basically focus and retrieve only the data that you want. I think that's it, Phoebe. Yeah, that's me.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'll take any
Great,
questions.
thank you, Stephen. We have time for one question. I am really keen on the cross-application timesheet functionality between SAP SuccessFactors and time management and SAP S/4HANA. What are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, it's an integration which we've used for various clients. Yes, so it's relatively simple to set up, and it does work well. Yeah, so it basically picks up anything on SuccessFactors where the time has been valuated and approved. I should say approved and then valuated, and then you basically just have to map the time types across to attendance types on the SAP S/4HANA system. As I say, the actual integration config is fairly basic. It pulls across those attendances, whether they're in days or hours, it handles that correctly. And yeah, you get the usual sort of error logging that you might have seen if you've ever seen the employee integration. So yeah, it's a reasonably sound integration. It's been active with some of our customers for over 2 years now, and yeah, it works well. So it's something that Zalaris can definitely help you with.
Great, thank you, Stephen.